Welcome to Double Overtime, presented by VC Ultimate. I'm Jenna Weiner. He's Sascha Vogel. Sascha, we got 1 week left in the Premier Ultimate League season. The Western Ultimate League has been wrapped for a couple of weeks now, and club season is right around the corner. I know some teams are already starting to get their games in, rosters are dropping, but I'm planning to spend my next weekend playing Masters Regionals. We were just talking off air. Time is and age eligibility is different, men's, women. So even though we're similar age, I get to play Masters, and unfortunately you have to wait a little while longer.
Yeah, I have to wait at least like 2.5 years now. I'm only 30, so.
Yeah, and I'm younger than you, but my birthday's later this year, so it's your age 30 year for women, so I get to play. I'm picking up with a team out of Seattle. I have no idea how, good we're supposed to be, or if we're supposed to, show up to regionals, which is, the super regionals things. So I'm picking up with a Northwest team as a person who normally plays in the Southwest. So I presume I'm going to play against some of my friends while playing on a Seattle team for some number of bids, and some number of teams that are playing, because the schedule isn't out yet, because it's Wednesday night before a weekend tournament, and it's USA Ultimate. So why would they have the schedule out yet, right?
You don't need the schedule until Friday night, technically.
Look, I'm at least local, and I am lucky that the tournament is out in Stockton, California. It might be very warm out there this weekend, but I'm lucky in that my grandfather lives out in Stockton, so I get the chance to visit him, say hi, hang out. And if the schedule is a mess, then hey, I just get time to hang out with my grandpa. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm hopefully playing Masters Ultimate for the very first time. Might be the last time this year, but hey, it'll be fun anyway.
Right. Speaking of fun and messes, it's time for our Mechanix Minute.
It's quite the segue you got yourself there. Also, we're going to do a quick Mechanix Minute, and then we'll be joined by Robyn Fennig of the Minnesota Strike, a arguably much better team out of the Midwest. But Sascha, yes, run us down the Mechanix Minute before we get a chance to talk to Robyn.
Okay, Detroit Mechanix visited the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds this past weekend at Pittsburgh's new stadium, which looks incredible, by the way. So
that's cool.
It looks awesome. They're in like a really nice soccer stadium.
Nice.
It's pretty legit. They did not win. They're still on the losing streak. They lost 28-18. Okay.
I was so hopeful for this game, Sascha, because I was checking scores because people were talking about it in the Discord, and I checked the scores and it was close, and I had hope. And then that hope died.
It was close. It was okay. Real quick rundown of the first quarter. There was a hold, and then Detroit broke. And then they held. Wait, no, sorry. Pittsburgh broke. And then Detroit held. And then Detroit broke. And then Pittsburgh held. Detroit held. Pittsburgh held. So the end of the quarter on serve, 6-5. And then the second quarter happened. And when I first saw the score, I was like 6-6. All right, I'm turning this on. 6-6. Beginning of the second quarter, this is going to be a sweet game. Turned it on, and Pittsburgh broke. Detroit dropped a pool, and Pittsburgh broke. And it didn't really get any better from there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I first checked the score when it was 7-6 or something, or somewhere around that. And then I was like, oh, it's 12-10 later. I don't know if that was the exact score, but it was in that ballpark. And it was 13-10. And then I didn't look for a while, and I came back. And it was fourth quarter, 23-15. And I was like, oh no. Again, those aren't exact scores, but that was basically the feeling I had. It was it was close. Oh no.
Right.
So the streak continues.
We're getting ever closer to that coveted 69 game losing streak.
What's the streak at?
It's like 65 or 66 right now.
I mean, hey, Sascha, we have at least a few more episodes. I will say this for our listeners at home. We have at least a few more episodes because we got to do PUL Champ Weekend recap. We'll hopefully do a mailbag. I'm going to hype that now. We're going to hype it later. Maybe get something on socials. Please send us questions. We'd love to attempt to answer them at least. So at least, we got a few more shows, so maybe we can cover the 69th loss in a row. And then pass off Mechanix Minute to be slotted into Deep Look.
Or maybe we can be the ones that will report the win. I want that too.
That's fair.
As much as I want the 69 game losing streak, I also want the win. Either way, we do win.
What if they lose 69 games in a row and then win the 70th?
Oh, that would be the dream.
That would be incredible.
The dream.
That would be the dream.
A positive note is that they're completing their hucks. Like,
we say that regularly now.
Yeah, like Detroit. Like if you're listening, huck more. You completed 85% of your hucks this game. You're 11 for 13 on hucks this game. I don't have all the rest of the stats for the rest of the games, but I know it was like pretty good for the rest of the games. Let's try hucking it more.
Yeah. Yeah, open it up.
Huck and play D. Like that's a thing.
It is.
And I mean, you're completing most of your hucks, so like
it's true.
It should work out. I mean, you got nothing to lose at this point. Might as well just do it.
Well, anyway, good luck, Mechanix. That has been a Mechanix minute and then some. Minute used liberally here, kind of like in disc golf, where they have a 30-second rule, except it doesn't really matter. So, same idea here. Mechanix minute, and it doesn't really matter if it goes over. We're gonna take a quick break. Did some intro stuff. We're gonna talk to Robyn Fennig next, again as mentioned, of Minnesota Strike. Robyn, as folks may know, currently living in California, playing for Minnesota, and will be in Washington, D.C. this weekend to compete for the 2023 PUL Championship. We're going to be joined by Robyn next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Our friends at VC Ultimate are proud to sponsor Double Overtime. VC proudly puts community over profit, focusing their support on initiatives that help promote inclusivity. As the first ever sponsor to back professional women's and non-binary Ultimate, VC puts its money where its mouth is when it comes to equitable action. VC also approaches product innovation intentionally to make more players feel like the Ultimate space is their own. Did you know that all VC core products are now 100% gender-free? If your team is in the market for uniforms or custom team gear, check out VCUltimate.com. Not only are they working to change the landscape of sport, VC's performance gear is the best on the field. Thanks to our sponsors of Double Overtime, VC Ultimate. And welcome back to Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. We are very excited to now be joined by Robyn Fennig. Robyn, where are you joining us from specifically at the moment?
I'm joining from Sacramento, California, in a park that I've never been until just this night for practice.
So first one, welcome to the show. Sascha and I are very excited to have you ahead of the PUL Championship weekend, which you will be at in DC. So you're going to go from one coast to the other coast to play for a team not from either coast, if I have that right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. So let's talk briefly before we get into PUL stuff, which is really why you're here. But you're in Sacramento. That's a stated fact. But who are you playing with? Are you going to try and bring Noise back again to the semis, to the finals, to once again prove all of Ultiworld and especially Deep Look wrong for picking against y'all year after year?
That is indeed the plan, and I will say that nothing motivates me more than thinking about Charlie maybe eating a shoe. So I'm really excited to try my damnedest to make that happen.
No one is safe ever.
Yeah, especially if you're Charlie and you said that you'd eat a shoe to the team that only takes jokes way too far. So, I mean, I feel like he must be a secret Noise fan. I mean, I think we've kind of pooped all over him for being a Noise hater, but he knows that if he wanted to motivate any team like Noise more, I mean, all he had to do is promise to do something like eat a shoe. So,
well, maybe let's make him eat a shoe this year. Unfortunately, we couldn't make him eat a shoe this year. We should have done that because then we wouldn't have. No, never mind.
You know, I've really been. I've loved getting that bonus Detroit Mechanix coverage. You know, I really love that. I think the Mechanix deserve some love. I mean, they're out there working hard. You know, as someone from the Midwest, love to see the Midwest love, even if it's not for my city.
It's doing the best I can.
Should we talk some PUL things, folks? Sascha,
yeah, I mean,
take it away.
I'll say because people already got their Mechanix Minute before getting to this segment, so maybe we don't need to extend that out. Okay, I got it.
We don't need the Mechanix 2 minutes. So what is it like being a travel player for Minnesota? Like, you're living in California, but you're traveling to all of the games, correct?
I missed the first road trip. That was it. It was in the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time. So the first game the Strike played was in Atlanta. The second game that same weekend was in Nashville. So I missed that road trip. But all the other games have been either in Minnesota or Madison. So it was a lot more feasible to do that type of travel schedule when I'm only going to Central Time Zone from Pacific Time Zone. And also, I don't have an unlimited amount of time off for work, so my travel situation's a little bit more limited. But, you know, going a couple time zones several times is easier than, you know, adding another East Coast weekend in. But being a travel player has been really good. I obviously, before I moved and went to tryouts and to practice in Minnesota, I wasn't in Minnesota. I also think that our team is a bit more regional, I think, than folks consider it, although most of the players are from Minnesota, from the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. We do have another player who's traveling from Madison who also plays on Noise with me, Sadie Redding. We've got a Kansas City crew, you know, making the haul up from Kansas City. So we've got Courtney Walby, Steph Rupp, as rostered players, and then we also have a practice player in Samaya. So they're coming from Kansas City, making the same kind of travel commitment. I just am doing it by air, not by car. Also, Callie Poletto just moved to New York too, so she's also a travel player. Wow. So we got quite the crew.
Yeah, I know being a travel player in the AUDL was a lot of time. Like every other weekend, driving or flying down to Tampa, it took a lot of time out of my life.
Yeah, I mean it is a lot of extra time, right, away from a play. And I really did think about that, you know, whether or not it was feasible. And then if that was how I wanted to spend my time, moving to a new place, trying to make new friends, build community, you know, try to connect with the Frisbee scene here. But ultimately, I don't have any regrets. It's been a really fulfilling season. One of the biggest draws for me was the coaching that the Minnesota Strike have. I think Carlos as the head coach and Pat Niles as the assistant coach have been really great in terms of helping us prepare. I've been getting a lot out of it, getting a lot of really good coaching and feedback, and getting the opportunity to just kind of talk about strategy and, you know, what our game plans are. And I like to think a lot about how to leverage some of the PUL rules, especially that in the quarter stuff. Like, I'm really into that kind of stuff. So talking to our coaches, who I think are doing a good job helping us strategize and prepare, has been really great. I've been really enjoying that whole experience. And then obviously playing in the mixed division for a few years, getting to compete alongside of the women matching players on Dragon Thrust has been incredible. And then, you know, prior to my mixed, post-COVID mixed time, I was playing on Heist, and a lot of the other players who play for Minneapolis Pop, getting to play with them has also been great because I've played against them a lot, especially in meaningful games. So it's a really cool opportunity to do that. And I feel like I know a lot of their games very intimately. And so it's been pretty easy to adjust to, you know, and integrate into their play style.
So what you're telling me here is that this is all long con for scouting Dragon Thrust.
No, I don't think.
So.
I mean, Dragon, there's a lot of film on Dragon. Plus, there's all the games that, Noise has lost at regionals to them and sectionals to them in the last couple of seasons. But it is really fun to get to, be on the other side of that matchup. I obviously got to play with Daniel Byers when I played in Washington, D.C. with Scandal in 2019. Unfortunately, Byers wasn't healthy, so I'm really enjoying getting the opportunity to throw to a very healthy Byers. We would have played on the same line in 2019. We did a little bit, but she, again, wasn't 100%. She had a knee injury she was coming back from. So to get to kind of have that experience, because she was a big draw, to want to be her teammate in 2019. So doing that now has been great. And then I also played with Sarah Mextroth in 2014 for the Worlds campaign with Dragon. So getting to play with her again, when she is essentially I don't want to say totally different, but she's way more confident. She's just like way more ample, like the amplitude of her game, like the peak of her game is just like so much higher. So it's fun to kind of come full circle and have been part of that upward trajectory. Now she's, playing the best frisbee she's ever played, and getting to do that with her in a different capacity has been great.
Yeah, and so I feel like we've heard just in this little snippet like a lot of different places and teams that you've played for, and notably you have played for 3 different PUL teams: Atlanta, Milwaukee, and now Minnesota. You have attended championship weekend, or will after this upcoming weekend, 2 out of those 3 times. What has it been like to A, play on those different teams, and B, what have you seen from the evolution of the league since you've been playing since in the league since 2019?
I think the preparation that teams are doing in year 3, versus year 1, and even like the exhibition matches that were played in 2018. I think the amount of preparation that teams are doing seems to be much higher. I still think that, the coaching staff and players are getting used to these end of quarter rules and things like that. But I think it's definitely a big difference. I also think that the rule set has evolved. I do think that I'd like to see some other changes, but that could be a whole nother set of questions. So I think like the game preparation and people leveraging the rule sets has definitely become more prevalent. I also think that with losing Revo in year 3, it's kind of created more showcase opportunities for some of the players that don't necessarily get a lot of love in the US. I think that a lot of focus obviously gets played towards the teams that have really big stars, but the players who are playing on Milwaukee Monarchs, Columbus Pride, Indy Red, Nashville, Nightshade, Minnesota Strike, Portland Rising. I think like a lot of those teams have players that are getting attention that never would have before. I mean, Pop made it to quarters in 2021, and yet folks couldn't tell you who from our roster played in quarterfinals at nationals, right? Like only 2 years ago. So like to see some of them, having their highlights shown on the internet, and I'm seeing people that don't know them sharing their highlights. Like that means a lot to me. I think it means a lot to our respective Ultimate communities. So I think like also being from the Midwest, I think being from a flyover state, people don't really think that we have a lot of talent in the women's division on the club side in the Midwest. And it feels really great to be the only undefeated team going to championship weekend. People can say what they want about our strength of schedule, but, I would love to see some of these other teams compete in the type of weather that we had to compete in this year. It takes a lot of mental resilience to finish a quarter 1-0. It takes a lot of mental resilience to be able to just ramp it up. And I think both teams were able to adapt. It's been a while since I've played in a game that windy, and I'll tell you what, the college division, like regional games that weekend weren't much higher scoring than that. But I think we, by the end of the game, refined what we were doing, and it was really awesome. So I don't know. I love being able to, I think like the teams that aren't from the coast, I think have gotten a lot better and are competing at that higher level. That's another trend that I'd probably highlight in the last 3 years.
Very nice. So talking about like the players that don't get that didn't get like a ton of attention before now? Who is like one player on strike that is completely underrated that people should definitely just be watching out for, I guess, at championship weekend this weekend?
I feel like I'm going to highlight a couple if that's okay. The first
Go for it.
Callie Paletto, I think, has done an amazing job defensively, taking some pretty high volume touch type matchups. I think she did a really good job. I mean, maybe you guys could argue, but like, when we played New York, having Cartagena as your matchup and preventing her from getting a lot of hucks. I mean, we really focused hard on our marking schemes to limit her big throws. She's going to get hers no matter what. And we'd rather keep it so that players are close to the disc and not able to throw in movement, right? Like that was huge. And she didn't have a lot of completed hucks. And that's very different for her, right? Like, I also, and then on a turn, I think that she does a really good job resetting the disc and keeping it moving. And she's doing that all while she's traveling, from New York. I think that's incredible. She moved during our season. On our O-line, Steph Wood is definitely someone I'd like to highlight, and I've been able to find really good chemistry with her this season. She's always cut into spaces that are easy to throw to. So as a thrower, that's like your dream. I'm going to say those two are the two main players that I would highlight.
Yeah, so speaking of that New York matchup, that's what awaits y'all in semis this weekend. Game in Minnesota during the regular season, 1-pointer, went to overtime. Any thoughts looking forward to it? It feels like maybe after they get picked as the wild card, after they beat DC, people are saying maybe should New York be the favorite, or certainly one of the favorites alongside the hosts, and are they overlooking the undefeated team? Are y'all feeling ready for that matchup on the East Coast away from home this time?
I mean, when was the last time that y'all have heard of an undefeated team feeling like the underdog? Like
Fair.
That's not a thing,
point.
right? Like it doesn't matter. I mean, we have showcased every single game that we played this season. We have won a different way. Like the types of people contributing, the types of touches we're getting, the types of blocks that we're generating, even in a game like against Columbus where we came out with really low energy, we're still able to turn it around, get those blocks, and cruise to a win. That was pretty comfortable. So I think it's really interesting that despite us winning in so many different ways, adjusting our strategy different ways. I mean, it's all in the film, nothing's secret. And even winning in this matchup that people are still like, yeah, you guys aren't going to win. I think that's pretty incredible, actually. And you know what? It's pretty comfortable, actually, to know that you're a good team and teams are still overlooking you. Like, that's a great place to be in, right? Like, talk about ideal headspace. There's no pressure on us because no one thinks we're going to do anything anyways. Like, it's an ideal performance mindset. Like, you just get to go out there and keep doing what you're doing. And I'm excited about that. I don't think New York's going to overlook us. I mean, we beat them, right? Like, I don't think New York's thinking that, it's going to be a walk in the park, but I'm really excited about the matchup. I mean, obviously we're going to see some slightly different personnel with it being a little bit closer to New York. Definitely expecting, like Angela Zhu's going to be suiting up. Plus, I don't think Mascara has recovered from her re-injury of her knee. So, I mean, it's going to be a, we're going to get a different kind of New York. And I also feel like since that game, we were comfortably ahead for most of the game. And then we had some execution errors towards the end that really, they took advantage of that. And I think we've really focused in on making adjustments, at least on our offensive line, to our resets, doing a ton of film study and a lot of just making those small adjustments. And I think that we're moving the disc really well. I think people were a little surprised that, our game against Milwaukee was maybe as close as it was, but that was the best Milwaukee's played all year. And I think that they played a very good game, against us. Our D-line struggled a bit to convert. I mean, we had a lot of opportunities and it could have been a bigger point spread, but they did a good job on a turn, limiting those options and forcing difficult resets. So I think that was actually a really good preparation for us heading into the weekend. Similar weather conditions that we're going to see this weekend, which is like the first nice weather game that we've had all season with some humidity. I feel really good. I feel like that's a really long answer, but you guys got a lot to work with.
I mean, hey, I like it. I like the confidence. I like how analytical you are about the game as well. And yeah, I think those are all great things to take into the weekend and be like, hey, we're undefeated. We're going in and we're doing what we've been doing all year. And we're going to get this. I like it.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a very comfortable place to be. I mean, to be an undefeated team, and it's not like there's a bad team in this league. Like, we don't have a Detroit Mechanix, that's getting blown out by the teams at the top every single week. I mean, the teams that aren't as successful in the wins and loss column are still good teams and are still putting up close scores on the teams that are at the top.
Facts. Okay, so it's the last weekend of the season. Looking forward to next season, are you thinking of playing professionally again, first of all?
It's really hard to answer that question because I just turned 36, right? Like I'm not in my early to mid 20s. I'm not, someone who's still competing in the college division. I'm not like, I feel like every year it really depends on how my body's feeling in the off season. Depends on other things in life, and how I want to spend my weekends, I guess. I'm not sure. A lot of it depends on what options are available. You know what I mean? Like I've always been the type of person who wants to enjoy my team experience to the maximum. And I have sacrificed a lot to play on some really amazing teams where I got a lot out of the experience, So there's a lot of variables, but I think the most important one is, how do I feel after this club season? My body's still in one piece, and I feel like it will. I feel like my body generally feels better than it has when I was like in my late 20s. So I feel good about that, but too early to say.
Gotcha. So I guess
no breaking news this week, Sascha.
Dang it. Okay. Thought exercise. If you had a choice between any team on any league and your body was 100% ready to go, what team would you want to join and why?
And I'm just going to use this year's rosters. Honestly, like I would pick Utah because, not just because like,
good answer.
Like, just because you're a homer or something, right? Like I really, some of the players on that team, to me seem like the incredible kind of teammates that make the travel worth it, right? Like I would love to play with Corey Bigham. I would just absolutely love that opportunity someday. I also think like if Jen Cogburn was playing, like getting to play with her would be awesome. Kat Songer I played with her a season early in club when I was still in grad school in St. Louis. And that was great. And just to see her trajectory over the years has been like like that full circle moment to be able to do that. I think Kayak would be a wonderful teammate. Like getting to play with Paige would be sick. Like, there's a lot of people that I think I like chatting with and like being around that like are also high level players on that team. I don't necessarily like, I don't think like my role as a player would be something that like a Seattle needs. They've got Sadie. Like I don't need to go do that. They have someone who does that. And I think that I could play opposite Paige and that'd be super sick, right? Like that'd be really cool. Yeah. Otherwise, I love Maggie O'Connor and I would love to get to play with her. That I feel like in LA would be like my second choice because I love Maggie. I got to play a beach tournament at Layout with some of the other players like Sophie, Havernack. Like there's some cool people that I would like to be teammates in like a longer, more meaningful way. So I'd say LA is probably my second if I was looking WUL. And PUL, like, it's either always going to be Milwaukee or Minnesota because that's where my people are, you know.
Home.
Mm-hmm.
That all makes sense. Well, Robyn, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Best of luck this weekend. We'll be cheering you on, at least, even though we are unbiased observers. We'll be rooting for Robyn.
Super unbiased.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, super unbiased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, Sascha actually, secret pick. Sasha's picking Utah Wild to win the PUL. He's picking it.
It's happening.
If only he could.
Right.
Best of luck this weekend. And hey, we'll actually have to meet up in person sometime now that we're actually in the same state. So best of luck this weekend.
That'd be lovely.
And
thank you.
We'll see you around. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I love what y'all are doing with this podcast. Seriously, thank you so much for letting me come on and really love it. So good luck.
Thanks, Robyn. You're the best.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, picks. And welcome back to Double Overtime, presented by VC Ultimate. Thanks so much to Robyn Fennig again for joining us this evening. Sascha, so much confidence, which is not surprising coming from Robyn. But the confidence, the swagger, we're undefeated. Like, of course we should, expect to win the games that we're playing. And obviously we'd love to make people look wrong. I mean, she's done it with Noise. Why can't she do it with Minnesota Strike?
I think it's possible. They got their, I guess we already know the games that are being played. Like the matchups, there we go. The matchups being played for the weekend, and they get New York, who they already beat this season. So who's to say they won't beat them again? Like it's they could do it. They could get to the championship game.
It's true, and we'll see. We have to do picks, so we'll get to that in a moment. But Sascha, we're talking about New York Gridlock playing Minnesota. When we recorded was it just last week that we recorded, and we were like, we don't know what's going to happen. Here's, there's cases to be made for New York and then Philly. And then Sascha, per usual, we've had such luck, especially this season, but I think in general, where we decide to record, we often record, peek behind the curtain, folks, Tuesday or Wednesday nights. And with regularity, we record and the next morning we get on Twitter or on Discord, and news is breaking about the PUL or the WL. And once again, we recorded on Tuesday night last week, and Wednesday, news breaks, New York Gridlock is going to championship weekend, and then there is an uproar. Sascha, I feel like you were one of the few people who was even slightly attempting to defend this decision. I would love to hear more of your thoughts on why DC making it into championship weekend over Philly was not the egregious mistake that seemingly at least 90% of the Frisbee community thought it was.
I wouldn't want to say I'm defending the decision, I guess, because
okay, fair. I won't put those words in your mouth.
I was basically saying that this is what it like. With the criteria that the PUL laid out, this was the outcome that should have happened. So by that measurement, they got it right. Although I don't think it should have been, I guess I could say.
I think my thought, and this was talked about a fair bit by Charlie and Keith on Deep Look. The idea that power rankings were used to determine the ordering of teams that would make it to championship weekend, and the fact that, at least in my brain, as someone who has been doing the power rankings for both college and PUL/WL this season, power rankings to me reflect most recent performance. Teams get rewarded for doing well most recently. That's the power in power rankings, is the most recent results are weighted more heavily. It is not a, like, who is the best team by record. That's a different thing. But by calling it power rankings, then it's a situation that was talked about on Deep Look, and I will echo. You end up getting an effect of the ordering of the games mattering. And so New York's win over DC looks a lot better later in the season than if the ordering of the games was reversed and New York's win over DC came early in the season and they followed it with later season losses to Minnesota and Philly. But if you're doing a power rankings and you're like, we want to pick the best teams potentially on paper to make championship weekend, then sure, you pick New York, but then you're kind of throwing out head to head. Then you're kind of throwing out the overall season record. But also, the PUL was using divisional records for choosing the divisional winners, and in effect, then throwing out the results for at least choosing the divisional winners for like most of the games. And, you know, they used a ranking for picking the wild card, and that ranking was still used to then seed the teams. We'll talk about the specific matchups more in a moment. But it's like, clearly they weren't particularly interested in using the overall record, and they also seemed like they weren't necessarily particularly interested in using the head-to-head. There were other criteria they were using, and so then we get to the situation that we have where Philly ends up missing out in favor of New York. I don't know if I have super strong feelings either way. I think I am disappointed by the way that we got here, but I am not surprised by the result, similar to you. Again, I think it just continues to be more frustration with how the PUL has organized or communicated things, which is a hard thing to do, and also feels like part of the necessity of being a pro sports league. And yeah, I don't know. Disappointed, but not surprised. And it was also, there was some like other interaction stuff. We don't need to get into it, but like there was some interaction stuff with like PUL affiliated folks responding to the response to the decision. And it's like, I don't know if that's how I would have gone about it, but I am not those people or that person. So like, who am I to say on how they should be reacting to that specific situation? People may get what I'm hinting at. I don't necessarily know if I need to say it outright, because there was a lot of stuff that was buzzing around on Twitter over the ensuing couple of days.
Right. And I agree. Like I said, per the criteria, this is what was supposed to happen, per the criteria laid out by the league. Is it the correct decision? Who's to say? I mean, if New York ends up winning the whole thing, then yeah, it's the correct decision, obviously.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
You know, we can't really go back now. And I think these Philly people the Philly players and fans are really, really going to get behind this team next year, and they are going to come out firing, and they are going to show why they think or why they deserve to be there as well.
I mean, this was unfortunately, to an extent, always going to be a problem in some way or another, because they were simply three really good teams, and Portland was a fourth solid team in one division, and only two teams from one division were ever going to make championship weekend. And again, I think there are ways that it becomes less problematic. I know that, again, others have had much stronger reactions, even on Deep Look. It was like, how can you possibly make the decision when you have this particular criteria? And when things are comparable, you use the head-to-head. Again, I get it. I also understand why people may have voted the way that they did. Some people have pointed to like my PUL power rankings as like, oh, well, Ultiworld / Jenna had New York at the top. It's like, my power rankings are power rankings. If a team has a great win, they're going to move up the power rankings, and I'm not going to punish teams when they don't lose. But that is also then affected by the ordering of the games, especially when you have such small sample sizes. So my apologies if my power rankings tip the, bar over, but my power rankings are intended to do very different things than the league power rankings. I was not ordering teams for making it to championship weekend. That might have been at least a different list. I will also say, just generally, Philly folks totally like deserving to be upset. And like, I don't think there's any problem with people expressing their discontent that their team, who only lost a single game all season, doesn't make it to championship weekend. This is now back-to-back seasons that a 5-1 team has not made championship weekend in the PUL. I think that is going to be an ongoing problem until they figure out a better way to organize their postseason structure such that you are not leaving out a one-loss team every single time, even if Portland's case last year was maybe less strong than Philly's this year. But yeah, I don't think Philly's unjustified about being upset.
Jenna, you want to know the easy solution?
What's the easy solution, Sasha?
Just win all your games.
That's all fair. It's fair.
I'm not.
It is win all your games, and also we still at one point had the possibility of a like 2-4 Milwaukee team making the championship weekend ahead of a 5-1 Minnesota team, which would have been absurd, even more absurd than this. So I think there are a number of better ways that they could do this. I have seen people throw out 6-team conferences with the top 2 teams from each conference making it. That's a fine idea. The WL has done something very similar this past season. It might require a few more games, but that is a format that could work. I could see a situation where if you want to keep using the power rankings, then keep using the power rankings and the top 2 teams get buys. And then the next 4 teams play against the top 2 power ranking teams that made it in. I think that could have worked this season and avoided some of the contentiousness. I think also when you have a 12-team league, it is quite punishing to have only 4 of those teams make it to the postseason. Like, I know that's not the lowest ratio of teams making it in all of pro sports, I don't think. But it's certainly down there in terms of the number of teams that make it to the playoffs versus like the WL, 4 of 8, half. That is much more in line. So 6 of 12 might make more sense going forward. Should we talk about the actual championship weekend that we have in front of us and all the hypotheticals of what could be?
Well, real quick, we did have a game this week.
Oh, yeah, there was a game this week. But I mean, congratulations to Atlanta.
Hell
2 wins after going winless for like 4 years, and they won back-to-back games.
Yeah, they went back-to-back games, beating Columbus at the Poultry Days Showcase. First real quick run through of the game. First half was pretty close. After the first quarter, it was 5-4 Atlanta. At halftime, it was 11s. If you were watching this game, if you go back and watch this game, there is about 8 minutes of game time lost in the second quarter. Like I'm watching it, and then all of a sudden it just goes boom, halftime, and I was like, wait, what? And yeah, and also the very last 3 minutes or so of the game is not there as well. But Atlanta came out in the second half just absolutely firing on all cylinders and went on an 8-2 run in the third quarter, and then finished the game 23-19 was the final score. Shout out Atlanta for getting that done.
Yeah. Nice job. Nice win at the end of the season. Obviously no impact on championship weekend, but that's not to take away from Seoul bouncing back from going winless for an extended period of time and then getting back-to-back wins. I think there's definitely growth potential for Atlanta going forward. Lots of great young players out of that area, so could definitely see some further development from Seoul going forward. Columbus, unfortunately, falling to a winless finish at the end of their season. All right, Sasha, anything else that I have skimmed over that we should touch on before we get to championship weekend, or should we talk the thing?
Let's do the thing.
All right, 3 games over the weekend. We got 2 semis and 1 final. Your matchups: top seeded DC playing 4 seed Raleigh. Second seed Minnesota playing third seed New York. Both rematches, both won by the higher seeds earlier this season. DC Raleigh coming late in the season when both teams had already qualified. I think that was a week 10 matchup. But yeah, some interesting matchups again. Sascha, where do you want to start? Which one should we start to talk through first?
Well, I don't like the matchups personally.
Fair.
I hate it. I don't like having rematches for semis.
And we got double rematches.
Yeah, it's a double rematch for semis. Like, why we could have just nixed the seeding, or I don't even exactly know how they decided the seeding, but we could have nixed the seeding and had DC play Minnesota and Raleigh play New York. And that's two games that didn't happen this season. That would make for, I feel like, a more exciting semis because they didn't happen. And then the potential rematch in the finals.
Yeah, I think they definitely would be interesting games. I don't think there's any guarantee that they would be better games. I mean, we saw in the Western Ultimate League games that had happened early in the season that weren't particularly close, but also I don't think in the PUL, especially with this quartet, you have quite the standout favorite teams. Maybe you make the argument for DC or New York on paper, or Minnesota because they're undefeated, but I still don't think there's necessarily the kind of apparent gaps that we ended up having with Seattle, San Francisco, and San Diego, Utah in the Western Ultimate League. I hear you on that. I do think it's an interesting setup. Obviously, we have the rematch of the OT road game with the semi-surprise wild card in New York playing the undefeated Minnesota. Questions maybe around Minnesota's strength of schedule, but Robyn was saying, like, look, we've played the tough games, and no team in the league is necessarily an easy out, which I hear. I think for me, the contrast of styles potentially, or at least again, kind of on paper between DC and Raleigh. Certainly having just watched UNC Pleiades win the college title, I know they aren't remotely the same teams, but they've got some similar players carrying over. And I just think Raleigh and that whole Triangle Ultimate community tends to play very systems-based, clean offense, generate the blocks when they can, versus DC, I think, pretty clearly has had the best defense in the league for 2 years running. And that's a contrast, you know. I think there's a question of, you know, how does the DC D-line do against the Raleigh O-line? I think the game leans in DC's favor because they're at home, because of, I think there is a talent gap, even if Raleigh has all those star UNC players available. But I think that was an interesting, at least, contrast of styles, potentially, that we could potentially see in that matchup.
Yeah, I'm also confused why New York is the 3 seed.
It was supposedly it was based on the power rankings, the last power rankings.
It just doesn't make sense to me why the wild card team coming in would be higher than a division winner. I don't know. Anyways,
power rankings, Sascha, clearly the answer.
But yeah, rematches. I guess sometimes they're fun.
I mean, and okay, right? So we talked about one of the rematches as, you know, potential contrast to styles. Then we have a repeat of an overtime game where we have Minnesota playing on the road this time, or at least certainly away from home at a neutral site in DC. TBD, we don't have weekend rosters yet, but what kind of roster is this Gridlock team going to bring? You know, how far can Robyn and Sarah Mexstroth carry Minnesota? Not to say that there aren't an abundance of great players with strike. Again, Robyn made that clear earlier. But I think there's a point to, like, if the game gets late, does it just resort back to see what Mex and Robyn can make happen? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And is there a chance we get an all East final, or do we get a none East final? I think there are plenty of interesting storylines, even if there are the rematches.
Right. Either way, it's championship weekend, so the games will be exciting. Notably, there is no third place game. That's kind of come up a little bit on Twitter, not a ton, but it is kind of like the PUL's thing that they don't have third place games. Like they've never had a third place game. And I was talking to Raleigh's old coaches, he's been around the triangle for a long time, David Allison, about it. And I asked, like, before I went and looked everything up, I asked him, because he coached Raleigh last year. I was like, hey, was there a third place game last year? And he's like, no, there wasn't. I'm like, that's kind of weird. And he's like, yeah, but when you're at this type of when you're at this level and you end up losing the semis game, the team doesn't want to go back to the hotel or wherever they're staying or B&B and get ready for another game the next day. They want to, reflect on their season, celebrate their season, and just have fun with their teammates and go home the next day if they want.
Yeah. And actually, thinking on it, maybe the Western Ultimate League is the exception more than the rule in terms of having a third place game.
Right.
Most other pro sports leagues, if not all of them, don't have third place matchups. Some of that is because a lot of times that's a sort of series setup, and that would be a little silly to do a series as a third place matchup. But even in club, right? We don't have third place matchups at nationals unless it's for worlds placements.
Right.
Like Molly and Phoenix played for a worlds. What was theoretically a worlds bid before it ended up being 9 U.S. women's teams ended up going to worlds anyway. So maybe then, right, the Western Ultimate League is the exception to the rule. I just think it's interesting when you have leagues talking about we want to reduce costs, we want to make it accessible for folks, we want to showcase the athletes, to have folks fly out and then not showcase the athletes more, even if teams don't want to get up for that. I could see in this situation it might make sense to do that, even if that's not the norm typically. But yeah, so no third place games, just 3 games on the weekend. So should we do picks now, or do we have any other info or news to cover?
I think that's it. I think we can do our picks.
Okay, we'll do picks. Nothing really on Western Ultimate League, just very briefly. TBD on news or updates. The league tends to do quarterly updates, so I expect, given that it is already somehow the middle of June, that we will be getting one in some short-ish order from the league as we approach the start of July and the start of a new quarter of the year. So TBD on WL News. Again, we're going to have more shows, so we'll get to it when that does come up. Picks. Sascha, we both picked Atlanta for the final regular season PUL game. We both picked correctly, so hooray for that. I still lead you by a bunch of picks, so I'm sorry, but I don't know if you're going to be winning picks this time around.
It's not looking great for me.
No.
At all.
All right, should we pick these games?
Yeah, let's do it.
DC versus Raleigh, the 1v4. I don't know if this is the order in which the semis are happening, but this is the way I have it written down. Sascha, who is your pick?
I am picking DC.
Any additional comments on that?
They already won this season against them.
It's true.
They're playing at home.
This is true. They're the top seeded team.
Yeah.
I'm also picking DC. Sorry, Raleigh. Y'all already got your college championship. DC's turn. Plus, I mean, come on. We really picking against Clear Trope? Certainly at this point, I don't think so. DC makes back-to-back finals.
Right.
My turn for the tough one.
Yep.
Minnesota versus New York. I have gone back and forth on this for a while because, let's be real, the appeal on paper of New York is real. It's real. Like, on paper, they're playing closer to home. New York theoretically wins, right? Like, say you give Minnesota some like 2-point, 3-point advantage for playing at home. That's often some sort of advantage if you look at like other pro sports. There is some numerical advantage of playing at home. You take that away, New York wins. That said, I don't know if I could do the interview with Robyn and pick against them. Certainly not at least in the rematch. So I'm going to pick Minnesota.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Honestly.
It's tough to like interview Robyn Fennig and hear her be like, yeah, we like being the underdogs. We like when people don't pick against us because there's no pressure. And then pick against them. That doesn't feel like the right thing to do.
Right.
So in our theoretical final, we both have DC versus Minnesota, but now it's back to you.
I am picking DC because 1, they're playing at home.
They're playing
2,
at home,
like you said, Claire, like you can't Claire Trope and the rest of the team, and it's extremely hard to bet against this team when Cammy Groom is present now.
That's true. They didn't have Cammy Groom I don't think they had Cammy Groom when they lost to New York.
They did not. So it's very difficult to have when you have 2 of the best cutters in the world on this team. And then you have the rest of the team.
I was gonna say, and you have Carolyn Normile, Team USA in the backfield.
It's very hard.
The best
to
defense
bet against them,
arguably in the entire league.
I think Philly has a case for that too.
I think you're probably right. I was thinking more numerically, like the number of teams that they've held to like 10 or fewer points or close to it.
Strength of schedule.
I think there's
too.
an argument. I haven't looked at strength of schedule. There's all sorts of other stuff. Yeah. One of the best defenses in the league. I'm going to go spicy. Robyn, in the past few years, for those keeping track, semis in club with noise. Finals of club with noise. Going to make finals again with Minnesota Strike and win the championship this time. Minnesota Strike to go all the way. We had to have a different pick at the end. It's gotta be a thing. So those are our picks, and then that'll be it. Once again, folks, mail get bag. We would love to answer your questions. We're gonna try and put some stuff out on socials for this. We're gonna try and tweet it and retweet it. We're also not going to do it next week. So you have time to send in your questions. Please send them in. We would love to answer them. And that's going to be it for the end of season 2, Sascha. I can't believe we are basically already there. Although we got to do one last piece of business before we close tonight's show.
Highlight of the week.
Highlight of the week. Coming from the one game of the week, Atlanta's second win of the season, second win in 4 years over Columbus. It's a nice sequence, at least an hour into the link on YouTube, the amount of the game that's on YouTube. Atlanta, a nice string of possession, and Aaron Schrader, no surprise, just launching a flick down the field to open things up for Seoul, and they eventually get the goal en route to their regular season ending win. So, nice job, Atlanta, for getting it over the line. Their season is done, Sascha. We have 3 more games to go. Championship weekend. Tune in. Details can be found on the Premier Ultimate League's website. Go check it out if you're in the DC area. Go see it in person. I will be in Stockton, California, doing Masters Regionals things. So if you're out there, come say hi. I'll be around. Sascha, it's been a pleasure as always. Can't believe we're almost done with season 2.
We're so close.
So close.
Not that I want it to be close. I don't want it to ever end. But here we are.
Here we are. And hey, it's always season 3. That'll be it for this week's show of Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. Thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy the Premier Ultimate League Championship weekend.
Bye.